And so we're going to begin to start. I just want to make a point of that we have 9 presentations tonight. And I'm talking to my members. We have 9 presentations tonight. And we expect each one of the agencies to make some sort of presentation to us. Remember that there are other members in the room, as well as questions from leadership. And so let us just be aware of the things. And the other thing is this, let's try to keep this on the budget. On the budget. I know there's certain things we do want to know, possibly, how many people have voted already? I think everybody in the room might want to know that. But other than that, we're gonna get started now.
Oh, we do.
All right. All right, good evening, everyone. So welcome to the Audit and Finance Committee 2023 Agency Budget Review. This is session number 5, and tonight we have legal agencies and revenue. And our order will be Sheriff, Civic Center, Probation, number 4, Public Defender, number 5, Alternate Public Defender, number 6, Assigned Counsel, number 7, County Attorney, number 8 is Immigration, and number 9 is the Board of Elections. For each of you, you will be asked a series of questions related to your budget and are expected to answer as completely as you can. If any answers to our questions cannot be provided at this time, please indicate when you are able to provide them to the committee. So if you have to study long trying to figure out what to say to us, that means that you're not ready to give us the answer tonight. And guess what? That's okay. That is okay, all right? The legislators have been provided with your written responses to our budget information request letter. And so we thank you for your cooperation in providing them. However, in order to complete a more thorough examination of your budget, it may be necessary to forward you some additional questions after tonight's hearing. For example, there may be budgetary or spending trend questions not asked at this session, but will be forwarded directly to your department by staff for a response. And again, remember, first, I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And I know some of you leave ahead of time, but we are very appreciative of the service that you have provided with us. We're going to take attendance tonight. We'll start with our majority counsel, Ms. Kennedy, please.
For Madam Chairwoman, Ms. Willingham.
Present.
Peter.
Present.
Bergdorf.
Present.
Clay.
Present.
Grimm is excused. Ray Joyce.
Present.
Lakakis. Here. Mayo.
Here.
And Brewski is excused. 7 present, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, seven present. Tonight, those members that are not part of the Audit and Finance Committee, could you please, we're going to go down this row right here, state your name and the legislative district that you represent.
Sam Fine, District 6.
Frank Camiso, District 11.
Dennis Feeney, District 28.
Mickey Cleary, District 32.
Matt Miller, District 36.
All right, and tonight, I'm sorry. Wait,
One more.
I know, I'm sorry. It's more than one more. Mr. Finney is our majority leader. We have a minority leader here, Mr. Frank Moriello. And we also have the chair of the legislature.
Andrew Joyce,
Andrew
District 9.
District 9, okay? All right, so we're gonna get started right now. You have your list of where we're gonna start with. The budget pages have been provided to you. And we're going to start with Sheriff Apple.
Good evening, everyone. Madam Chairwoman, thank you for the opportunity to explain my 2023 budget. Together, my staff and I worked with the county exec staff to come up with what I feel is a workable budget to allow us to continue to provide a high level of security. Our budget is a slight increase over 2022, mostly attributed to personnel costs and inflated costs of gas, oil, medical at the jail, and food at the jail. Regarding our 911, we have no new capital project for 2023, and the new 911 center will be opening midwinter, which is slightly delayed as a result of generator delays. We have an increase in revenue for 2023, budgeted at $3.8 million, which is due to an increase in the 911 surcharge, 35 cents to 95 cents. This has nothing to do with our new building, but is desperately needed to keep up with technology and provide the best possible service to our residents. Our call volume at 911 continues to increase yearly. Again, this year, we are realizing a 10% increase in 911 calls, including rollovers from other agencies. Regarding our jail, 3150, the correctional facility will see an increase mainly in overtime and again, gas, oil, food, and medical. We will operate with a minimum of 55 vacancies, which amounts to $4.8 million in savings for the county. Even though we maintain a 50% vacancy rate, we have every tier open due to quarantined inmates, COVID-positive inmates, and of course, due to the state's new HALT law. With all the tiers open and with 68 current vacancies, we are averaging $85,000 a week in overtime. Our border revenue at the jail continues to generate approximately $6 million annually. We're looking at 6.3 this year, and I believe we have budgeted 6.2 next year. The homeless shelter continues to be a huge success, changing lives. We have currently 32 residents and have aided 243. We see an increase approximately 30% annually. Our Stop DWI unit has been pretty much flatlined as far as it's scaled back mainly due to the lack of revenue as a result of COVID. We expect over the next 24 months to have to get back to normal in regards to the revenue up there. But in the meantime, as you can see in the budget, we've scaled back a lot of our expenses and left some positions open. Our patrol division, your 3110, I have deleted a few supervisor positions, replaced them with commander positions, which include a bump in the salary. I have shifted funds to account for the increase in the salary. Same for the EMS deputy coordinator. We have eliminated one position and created the deputy coordinator to be able to have our first female deputy coordinator. The overtime increase is merely, in 3110, the overtime increase is merely to cover the amount of vacancies and the hiring crisis that we are constantly encountering. Our call volume for patrol has also increased by over 10% for our normal patrol zones. Our Albany detail has been very busy, includes a combination of overtime and straight time, roughly 11,000 traffic stops, 5,700 tickets, 970 tows, 750 arrests, 23 illegal guns recovered. And then lastly, I've included merit raises for all my non-union employees in addition to the 2% that the county has indicated. The raises are a mere $1,000 and $2,000. This was done due to the low salaries that the county has and the need to keep my employees. I'm consistently struggling to hire for all positions, and I need to slow down the turnover rate and keep some institutional knowledge. Again, I've deleted positions to pay for these raises, no new requests. In closing, I couldn't be more proud of the level of service we provide. The men and women of your sheriff's office have tirelessly worked through COVID, which still plagues us at the jail, and continue to work hard every day to quell the violence in our community. Again, I'd like to thank the county exec and his staff for working with us to prepare what I feel is structurally sound budget that will allow us to continue to serve and protect residents of Albany County. Fire away.
Oh, very good, thank you very much for your presentation. I'd just like to check. Could you speak to, can you please explain community service enrollee that's found on page 226?
We've slowly phased those positions out. Those are mostly the older fellas that you see in the courtrooms that really haven't come back from COVID. So I'm not sure what what's the question? Just who they are? They're just,
Yes.
They're the part-time old fellas that pour water and run relays for the judges, things like that,
Okay, all right, thank you.
The court attendance, right?
basically.
Okay. Sheriff, thank you for your presentation. I have two quick questions, and we'll go from there. A
believe line 3020, E911, the communication equipment went from 0 to almost 600,000. What equipment is that exactly?
So that equipment is actually the licensing fees and all for our records management system. We expect to get $500,000 back from the company that we are basically removing from county operations and going with a new vendor. So we budgeted for the money, but hopefully, once we get the 500 back, that will be offset minus 100.
Thank you, Sheriff. One more, if I could, Madam Chair.
Yes, actually.
Thank you. Sheriff, just, was there anything in your budget to help with the expansion of the Accord program?
There is two positions at 911. One is for a dispatcher position, and one is what we're considering a networks and system administrator position. I mean, that title really doesn't fit what they'll be doing, but basically it will be helping us supervise the Accord program and the dispatchers dispatching the proper mental health information out there.
Great. Thank you, Sheriff, and I want to thank you also for your and Dr. Giordano's help with Accord. So far, great success.
It's been working, it's been awesome. In fact, this past Sunday, right over here at the Hilton, they were given a innovation award by state EMS for county mental health and our EMS division.
Thank you, Sheriff. I'm all set, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Berdorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sheriff, I have 3 questions. I'll sort of ask them all at once so that we can keep the time down. Your Albany City detail, you gave us some sort of top-end stats. I'm sort of concerned about the costs. You've got deputies, you've got dispatchers, you've got overtime, you've got auto and support expenses. Can you elaborate as to how much of your budget that is and where we are as of today in terms of what you've expended in Albany? And did you build this into your 2023 budget? And do you anticipate staying through 2023? And then the second part of that question, is there any progress towards an agreement with the City of Albany on liability and compensation back to the county? That was one question, by the way, so you want me to ask the other 2 now?
Go ahead.
Okay. The UCM Digital Health Services sounds like a fantastic program to alleviate the backlog at our emergency rooms. Can you give us a sense of the status of that implementation and any data on the results to date, how it's working for you? And the third question is something that popped up in the news this past week. The Mohawk Hudson Humane Society is canceling its agreements with 15 municipalities to take animals, which many municipalities from Green Island to Colony to Albany have relied upon for years. It was reported that you see a potential for a municipal animal control program or to help. Could you provide your thoughts on that? Those are my 3 questions.
First question's A, B, and C, though.
You do them whatever order you want.
So our Albany detail, I have the numbers right here for 2022. It's been roughly $154,000 in straight time, $202,000 in overtime. That was as of this morning. To answer your question, yes, I have that money kind of built in. I didn't budget for it in 2022, but we have enough vacancies, and by the time the year ends and we scrape the lines, I'm very comfortable covering our costs for 2022. We did increase overtime for 2023, not necessarily for the Albany detail, but basically our overtime line has been shy for 10, 12, 15 years, and we are trying to get it to where it really needs to be. The other problem, Paul, with our overtime, and I don't know if the rest of the county gets this, but we have like buyouts and things like that come out of that overtime line. And then, of course, we pay overtime for like federal details that we get reimbursed, but it never goes back into that line. So that overtime line isn't really, it's skewed quite a bit by probably could be upwards to $100,000 or more. So we did bump our overtime up. I think the actual number is 150 for 2023. And again, we did at the jail as well. Number two, does that answer your number one?
Well, what would you say is that a total value for 2022, or since you started going into the city of Albany?
That's a current to-date number. I don't pay overtime every day in Albany. Early on, I was, but I could see that, you know, this was gonna become a very expensive venture. So what we started to do was shift resources. I'm not taking resources from other parts of the county. Everybody's getting patrolled. What I'm doing is we just move some manpower around. So on a given day, I could have one or two guys in on overtime working in the city of Albany, as opposed to last year where I could have had 8 to 10 individuals in working. So, you know, it's hit and miss. The number is significantly lower this year because of that, using straight time and moving resources around. We also pull from headquarters on days where there's holidays, those men and women are still coming to work. So they, you know, they can go out and patrol the streets of Albany. And again, do I anticipate staying? It's hard to say. How do I leave? I almost feel like, I know it's an expensive venture, but I also feel like I'd be abandoning the residents in the city of Albany if I do. You know, it's not just city residents that commit crimes. It's people from all over the place that come into the city looking to score drugs, looking to do whatever. And, you know, I almost feel like I'd be abandoning them. I've tried to think of like, wow, how do we really come up with an exit strategy? And it's really hard to do. You know, you think things are settling down, and then we have a week like this week started off with loaded handgun, black ski mask, bunch of drugs. The next night, our deputies are traveling through an intersection, and they get T-boned by a drunk driver who takes off and flees and flips his car over. And you know, and then he's wanted. And then it's, you know, it's just been a little bit of mayhem. You know, it's peaks and valleys. And of course, nice weather brings more people out, more people to the city of Albany. Colder weather, things do kind of slow down a little bit. So yes, I have boosted my overtime next year in anticipation of, you know, continuing to move forward with what we've been doing. You know, I have a couple people that are dedicated. We've created a Zone 9, and that's the city of Albany. You know, our guys have been working great with Albany and the state police. We've done a lot of joint ventures. We've been working with some of our federal authorities as well on threat assessment and things of that nature. I guess it's going as good as it can be expected. It's just, we've got to kind of stop the flow of, you know, illegal guns into our city streets.
Okay, the last part of that question, and if you could share some of those numbers with us in writing, I couldn't scribble them down fast
Okay.
enough. I'd appreciate it. But is there any effort or outreach to the city of Albany? I mean, many communities pay you for various services. You know, Albany has 70 to 80 vacant police slots that there's not one of them that doesn't cost $100,000, so they're saving $7-8 million in their city budget, and
Mr. Bergdorf?
we're laying it
Sorry.
out.
You asked, as the chair pointed out, you know, we're trying to keep it to
Okay,
you
all right.
You asked 3 questions that were actually 5 questions that you're now turning into 7.
Okay, is there any effort to talk to the city of Albany?
I have not in several months. I believe, I don't know if law, we were trying to work out an agreement, an MOU, but I don't think there was a response from law at all on that, right? So that kind of got pushed to the side, and I have spoken with the comptroller's office about it, but I don't believe so at this point.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Do I? Mr. Clegg?
Just a quick statement. I don't want Matt to grab me here. Just a quick statement, Sheriff. Thank you for your service in the city of Albany, and please, I do not, as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, I do not want to see any of your services curtailed here in the city. I see the cars all over the place. I've seen 3 today up on 2nd Street in Albany. So thank you, and please continue to do the good work. Thanks again. Is that quick enough?
Sheriff, could you go back to the municipal animal control?
Okay, wait a minute,
Okay, I'm sorry.
please. Are there any other members who have questions? All right, and police, just one more?
Well, there were two, they're both easy compared to the first one. What's the story with
So our,
potential municipal animal control?
you want me to hit telemedicine?
Oh, yeah, hit that first and then. go to
Telemedicine
animal
has been a great program. Basically, we've got the ambulances will respond to the resident, they'll talk to the resident, they'll ask them if they mind if we reach out to a doctor via the laptop. A doctor will get on the screen. We've had some great cases so far where the doctor has actually talked the person into going to the hospital. It's not about keeping them from it, whatever's the best course of action for that person. But in the meantime, with the crises that are going on at the med centers, ERs being shut down at midnight, pediatric ERs being shut down sometimes early day, it's been a godsend for us. We can, treat the person up, they're pushing the paramedic licenses basically to the max. We can keep them on the street, keep them available. Otherwise, we bring the patient to one of the local med centers, they could be there for hours. So telemedicine to me is the way of the future. Real quick on the Mohawk Hudson Humane Society, yes, they canceled contracts, I think, with like 13, 14 municipalities. Ours, we don't have a contract with them, so it was never canceled. You can't cancel what you don't have. But we have a very good working relationship with MHHS, and we don't have an issue that a lot of the smaller municipalities have. With that said, there's nobody around here that's gonna be taking stray dogs or stray animals, and if you run into a hoarding situation, you could have 10, 15, 20 cats, dogs, whatever. So we are looking at taking the old maintenance building at the jail. There was a garage built in the 80s, has lifts, they haven't worked since the 80s. And I'm looking at putting kennels in there, finding a heat source, which could be a resident heater, nothing big, and creating some sort of holding facility, overflow facility for MHHS. I haven't got into the weeds with them on this yet as far as how this would work. Very infant stages, but I think it would be a great concept. I think the inmates could also help out. We've had a proven program up there with our therapy dogs and our dogs that the inmates train. It's been awesome. Unfortunately, it kind of screwed everything up for everybody. So we're still trying to come back to that, but I think the program could be very successful, and I think we can do it for a minimal amount of money.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, you're very welcome, thank you. Is there-
Sheriff, as you're expanding your EMT and EMS capacity, one of the things we've been hearing from municipalities is that really the reimbursement only comes back if someone goes to the hospital and things like that. Do you believe that it might help with retaining, and staff and also reimbursement rates if preventative health supplied by EMTs would reimburse from, by the state the same way that hospital visits are?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you very much, Sheriff. Thank you for coming out. And again, we do applaud all of the work that you've done, especially in the city of Albany, how you've stepped up to the plate. And over these past 3 years, we know that there has just been a lot of work out there to do. So we thank you for your work. We thank you also, all of your people.
Thank you.
In every situation, your 911 that, I hope is running well. And so, we're done with you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move forward here. Is Mr. Belver with us tonight?
Yes. I see him. That's all it is.
Good evening. So this is Jennifer Chaffee. Jennifer is our Director of Finance at the MVP Arena. Many of you probably have gotten to know Jennifer over the years. The 2023 budget, we're very happy with the numbers that we've got in there. Ours is a little bit different. It's not an expense-driven budget to the county. It's usually and hopefully more and more profits for the county that we can potentially generate for you. This past year is looking very good. I think we had a budget of $1.1 million roughly that was going to go to the county for 2022, and I'm happy to say that we're tracking ahead of that budget sizably. We think it's going to come in anywhere from $1.4 million to $1.5 million to the county, so we're happy with that. Going into 2023, the expenses on labor is going to be a little bit higher. As we all know, it's been a bit tough, especially on the changeover crew, to get the changeover crew to work. But we've found some ways to do that without just going straight higher wages. And the incentives are working. Going forward, we've got NCAA men's basketball in 2023 and some great concerts that are already lined up. Sellouts like Bruce Springsteen, shows like Thomas Rhett that'll go on sale next Friday. We've got some great family shows with Felda Entertainment bringing in the traditional Disney on Ice and monster trucks. And Jurassic World Live will be coming in October. So we're happy with the programming, and particularly we're happy with the ticket buyers and with the public coming back, coming off of COVID. And, you know, arguably, I think our industry was the worst hit out of any out there, and I'm sure anybody, restaurants and so forth, can argue that. But we were closed up. We had to manage a lot of relationships with suite holders and advertisers to make sure that when we came back, they were happy. Some of them paid even during the COVID time period, so we had to give credits to some of those. To Jennifer's credit, I mean, there were literally hundreds of contracts that had to take place, and we accounted for all that. And even with all of that, we didn't lose a single advertiser. Out of 135 advertisers, we kept every one of them. We're 100% on our suites as far as renewals go. We're 100% on our lease retail properties down in front. And so I feel going forward that this $1,352,889 that we've got in the budget is a good number.
All right, thank you so very much. Are there any questions from any of the members? Mr. Bergdorf.
Can't question the numbers. I got two questions. What are the premium seats? I never heard of that before. That's question number one.
Sure.
And number two, you talk about, you know, a partnership between Nassau Coliseum, new exec coming in, and National Sales Initiative for national customers to increase revenue at the MVP. Do you have a goal for what that revenue might be? So premium seats and...
Sure, let me hit premium seats first.
Yeah.
So premium seats, we started November 1st of last year. And where they're located in the arena is the row of seats directly in front of the suites. From the 180 line, I say 180 because when the end stage is on the end of the arena, from the corner of stage around to the other corner of the stage, that row of seats in front of the suites, we removed the entire row of seats and we put in nicer chairs with fold-down tables, and we sold those in sets of 4s or 8s. And we sold them on an annual basis, very much like we're selling the suites. We took in over $300,000 in revenue, which dropped right to the bottom line for the county. The difference between selling those seats annually and us retaining those revenues versus if they were just sold tickets for events, it would all go to the artists, it would all go to the family show producers, and so therefore we're keeping 100% of that revenue to our operating and to our bottom line. So, and all of those came up for renewal October 31 of this year. And so starting back in August, we started renewing those and sending out renewal notices. And we have renewed, I'm happy to say, 100%. So that $300,000 we know we're gonna have going into next year.
What do they cost?
It depends on what the location is, how close to the stage, but they are $2,500, $2,000, $2,500, and $3,000 per seat. So, which is just a little bit less on a per seat basis than it would cost for a suite. So you don't have the amenity of the bathroom and wet bar and so forth. But they have the ability to order concessions from their seats and then go to a fast lane and pick the order up without waiting at the concession line. But more importantly, it's a nicer seat, there's a lot more leg room, and they love it. All of these people that have bought the seats renewed and they love it. And we love the fact that the revenues are flowing to our bottom line. And part of the reason that we were able to do that, because as you can imagine, that pulled 238 seats off of the sellable capacity for our promoters. But my pitch to them was the money that we take in from the premium seats is going to help recoup the losses to the county from the COVID year. Because there were some losses during 2020 that basically the county had to cover. And so that went over with everyone, Live Nation, AEG, Feld Entertainment, everybody was amicable towards assisting the county with this effort. And so that worked. On the Nassau Coliseum issue, there's a $75,000 number that we put into the budget, which is advanced commissions for sales that were not just expected, but we do have a big goal here to try to get national brands to come into the building. And I want to say this, the company itself, SMG, is a subsidiary of ASM Global. And so ASM Global is the biggest in the world. It basically is a company that was formed by the merger of SMG and AEG facilities. AEG was the second biggest, SMG is, or was the biggest until it merged. And the efforts that are going on at our corporate office right now to go after national brands, to bring advertising revenues to the venues, to the field, is massive. And in fact, I'm going to be going to a convention in San Juan on Monday, and I'll be there for 3 or 4 days. And it's all about processes that are going to be used to bring national brands to our venues. The gentleman that we're planning to use in the case of Long Island and Albany, where that person will be aggressively reaching out to agencies that represent national accounts and to the brands themselves, and this includes spirits and all kinds of different brands. He has tremendous experience, and it's all about who you know and what you've done with those contacts in the past. And so that gentleman was up here today. He actually just left about an hour ago. And he is has been incredibly successful with 7-figure deals with national brands. And I think it's going to be a game changer. I think we're going to see major revenues that will come into our building because of that initiative with the gentleman that has the contacts at the agencies that will help us get more deals. And to your credit, to everybody's credit in this room that's helped us on this legislature with new video scoreboard, with the LED ribbon boards, with the outdoor boards on South Pearl Street, those digital inventories are going to be what's going to be used to attract those national advertisers. And so the expense that's been put out there is going to be recouped from these numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ray?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Belber, so I think before we went into the pandemic, the Times Union Center was recognized as one of the top worldwide venues by, it was Polestar, some group. It was a great thing. I attribute to your management and your team. Something that Frank and some of the people that got kicked in the teeth for building the place should take some pride in. But where do we see, 2022, we see it coming back, obviously coming out of pandemic. 2023, you probably have your finger on the pulse of the entertainment industry. You see a lot of tours getting scheduled for these venues again, or?
So we see a lot of tours that are going out, and I do think we're going to have a lot of concerts. I'm projecting in the budget a couple of less than what we had last year, only because at the time that we put this budget in, and the number of, and even now, the number of concerts I have on the schedule versus where we were last year at this time is 3 or 4 less than what we had. Having said that, there are tours that are currently being routed that I'm all over and trying to get dates on. And so that number can change. We could potentially go up to and maybe beyond. It's too early to tell yet how many concerts we'll have in '23, because usually we don't see that schedule finalized until January, February for the balance of the year. But I can tell you, anything that's out there, we're going to be after. The fact that we're going to be also having a collaborative relationship with Nassau doesn't hurt, because the promoters can utilize both from a leverage standpoint. But, you know, we are in the top 25, actually we're in the top 16 buildings in the company out of 352 buildings. And that includes all the primary markets, you know, the Chicago, Soldier Field, and Superdome, New Orleans, and various other buildings that are in primary markets. So to Frank's credit and to everyone else that you just mentioned, to build this arena, I will say this, that the building was built right. The size at the time was way bigger than any other secondary market. But had you not built it at 17,500 seats, we would have never got the Rolling Stones. We would have never got Billy Joel and Elton John. You know, you don't get that without the capacity so that they can pull out the dollars coming from the market. And so when you look at the dollars that we've generated net to the bottom line for the county, I think every year for some 25 years, we right around $1 million or a little over $1 million, I think. In a couple cases, it went to $2 million. And most of the buildings in the country, they're basically breaking even or they may be losing money. Part of that is the fact that we kept 100% of the permanent advertising rights. We never gave it away to the teams. They asked, the AHL team asked, but that's over $1.3 million a year, right to our bottom line that we would have given up. So we held on to those, and as a result of that, the county has benefited. Same thing with the suite revenue. Many of the other buildings give away the suite revenue to keep a team in the building. Fortunately, we've got 3 teams in the building, and things are going well. Have we had some changeover with teams? Yes. Could we have kept the AHL team if we gave them the suites and permanent advertising? Maybe. But Binghamton gave them a guarantee to cover all of their losses, which was about $2 million a year, plus $750,000 as an affiliation fee. So if the county had done that, even if we gave away those revenues, we still would have lost money. So I think we made the right decisions.
Thank you. Ms. McLaughlin.
Mr. Bilber, I just wanted to say that over the years that I've watched your administration there, you've really made the Civic Center the People's Civic Center. And I don't know what kind of arrangements you have with entities that make the center their home, but I hope you keep them up so that when we call you or are requesting that it be young people in our community, the children get a chance to come and experience the Civic Center. You've always been very responsive. So I just hope that however you're budgeting that and the relationships that you have, that you can maintain those so that it can be the community civic center, and our community doesn't watch just outsiders come in and enjoy the center, but those who are residents within the city of Albany in close proximity have the opportunity to experience. So thank you very much for how you have done that over the years.
You're welcome. And many of the producers of the events actually are very supportive of that. Feld Entertainment and various others. When we submit requests for tickets for youth or neighborhoods, they've been very receptive and they've given that okay. Many times we can't just do it ourselves because it's basically their inventory, but they've been very supportive.
Thank you.
Mr. Elber, just one final question. Besides that, coming out of COVID, you've done a tremendous job and stuff, but we're starting to see in downtown Albany, I won't call it an entertainment district, but between the MVP Arena, Empire Live, the Palace, Cap Rab, and other things, there's sort of something to do every day of the week. And with that, with the convention center, the question I have is, you've done a great job with the MVP Arena. Are there any plans to sort of help with the experience outside of the arena, like things that are going to engage people to really sort of put like they're coming to Albany on the map besides just the great show?
So that's a great question, and the answer to that is there are a lot of things that are in the works right now along those lines for festival events outside the building, on the streets, farmers markets, things that will do exactly what you're suggesting. It's not necessarily incorporated in the budget. Those are things that are being talked about, and there are producers of festival events that we're engaging. Folks from MVP have been very supportive and involved with those discussions. County Exec's office has as well. And so I think you're going to see a lot more of that than you'll ever have seen in the past.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Elber.
Thank you so very much for your presentation. And again, I can only echo the comments that have been stated by certain members here. And so just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
But I would like to ask you something. I was trying not to.
Sure.
I understand that there's something coming over in Schenectady. And I just want to know some kind of, next to the casino, a hockey something or other, or anyway, how's that going to affect us?
That's a good question. And I know that the state has committed $10 million towards that project. I know that Union College has an interest in playing in an arena that they want to build there. I have been somewhat non-supportive of the concept because I think it will compete with the smaller concerts that we have coming into our building. We are a member of what's called Fair Game. Our arena is a member of the Fair Game. Fair Game is a consortium of theaters throughout New York State that was formed back before licenses were granted to casinos and resorts that have casinos. And Philip Morris and Elizabeth Sobel from SPAC and Palace Theater, and 15 other theaters in New York State formed what's called Fair Game. And the whole reason behind forming that was because when they were going to put casinos across the state, all the theaters, and even I, were concerned that if a entertainment complex was to be put on a casino property with more than 1,000 seats, because they can pay so much more for the talent, they would take anything that would go in the Palace Theater would end up going at Rivers Casino to a new facility if it was more than 1,000 capacity. So the state actually, at the time, somewhat forced each of the license holders of the casinos to engage with Fair Game and to enter into agreements with Fair Game such that they won't build more than 1,000 capacity venue. When this issue of the arena came up, and it was clear that they were going to have 2,600 seats for hockey, which for hockey would be fine. I don't think anybody in this room probably would have a problem with Union hockey playing in the arena. The problem is when you cover the floor and you add 2,000 more seats, that becomes a 4,600 seat building. You know how many concerts we have annually that are between 4,000 and 6,000 seats? And they can pay twice as much money as a normal promoter because they're getting the people to stay and gamble. So, and we've seen case in point where in the Hartford Civic Center, where Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut and Uncasville was built, it deteriorated and eliminated concerts from the Civic Center in Hartford. That's why I joined Fair Game. So I've been against this arena being built in Schenectady because of the promises and actual written contracts that have been signed by Rivers with Fair Game. My intent originally was to protect the Palace Theater and the smaller venues, but now that it's become more than a small venue, it's become an arena, it can impact this facility as well.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much for your response to that. And we have no further questions of you tonight. And
Great.
so thank you again for your hard work.
Thank you very much.
Probation, Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I give an opening statement, and I received some questions earlier today. I prepared to answer also. Good evening, Madam Chair and legislators. The mission
Can
of
I
the
ask you to do one thing for me?
Yes.
Speak up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Big people.
A little nervous. So, excuse me, the mission of the probation department is to improve the lives of all persons we work with in the criminal justice system. We seek to change the outcome of individuals using many techniques such as motivational interviewing, decision points, and a variety of cognitive therapy and evidence-based programs. We serve all courts in Albany County by conducting pre-sentence investigations, predispositional investigations, providing intake, diversion programs, and supervising all sentenced adult and juvenile offenders. We continue as a lead agency for bail reform monitoring in Albany County. We also supervise Raise the Age youth ages 16 to 17. Raise the Age has also created a new youth court in Albany County, which we serve. The probation department is also the designated collection agency for the disbursement of court-ordered restitution in Albany County. Our effort is not only to hold offenders accountable through graduated sanctions, but to also provide meaningful skill-building programs, helping all to become law-abiding, responsible, productive members of the community. Sentences of probation range from 1 year to 10 years, even lifetime. The most common are 3 and 5 years. We work with individuals for lengthy periods of time. We receive persons convicted of larceny, assault, sex crimes, domestic violence, drugs, weapons, and many others. Probation clients struggle with employment, education, substance abuse, homelessness, and mental health. As we move away from the pandemic, we have seen a shift in probation supervision cases from sentence to pretrial bail reform cases. We've also seen an increase in GPS tracking orders. We've also seen an increase in the risk level of the offender, seeing more difficult and more serious convictions. The questions I received today, 4 questions. I have several vacancies in the department, and what is being done to bring the department up to full staffing. And also, same question, is your department positions typically paid at the budgeted amount once filled? So we have lost several staff to retirement and obtaining different jobs. I've had several positions hired at the state or executive department, DCJS. The civil service list was exhausted in 2021, and I had no one to hire. The probation officer test was given the first week of June this year. I just received the certified test last week, and I anticipated it not being returned quickly. I was given the raw list of those who took the exam in June, and I canvassed all of the people that took the test to come in for pre-interview. I interviewed 20 of 26 persons who took the examination who came in and participate. This saved several weeks of time, and I now have 8 people who are continuing with the process and will be participating in peace officer psychological exams next week. Once that's completed, we will need peace officer background checks. And once that's done, I hope to make 8 offers to these persons before the end of the year. The recent passage of the Albany County residency rule has also allowed consideration of more applicants. Several persons that reside out of the county took the test. And there was another position vacant, a supervisor position. I did hold back, and it was in anticipation of hiring several people to form another unit. And I just received a new civil service examination for that too. And I'm currently interviewing candidates next week for the probation officer supervisor promotion. And one more position, a probation assistant list. I had 2 openings for that. That was also exhausted in 2021. And I received a new certified list for that. And my priority is to hire the probation officers who actually provide case review with clients, and then move to the probation assistant list for 2 vacancies. And the second part of the question, no, all positions are not equal in the budget. As an example, all staff salaries negotiated with PEF. I have one contract, and CSCA another contract. An example would be if someone left their job and I filled it, the person receiving the promotion would receive the lowest step in their contract. And so the budget would remain higher, and it would be adjusted in the following year in the budget preparations. The next question is questions about one of our programs, PATH, which is Participants Achieving Hard Work through Hard Work. This is a contract with one of our local providers, Northern Rivers. The program is designated to provide case management services to Raise the Age youth. It incorporates the use of parent advocates, community coaches, credible messengers. These individuals will be members of the community with real-life experiences that will be helpful in assisting youth and their families navigate the juvenile justice system. All of it is under the guidance of a Northern Rivers case manager. Other services provided will include mentoring, transportation, parental support and education, housing, vocational advocacy. And there's no cost to the county for this program. It's 100% funded through Raise the Age funds. The next question, individuals being monitored or supervised by the department, specifically what work-related changes directly attributed to monitoring populations committing serious offenses. So we had several law changes. I think everybody's aware of them last year. Bail reform and Raise the Age has contributed to many more individuals being released to the supervision of the probation department that we have not seen in the past. Many of these individuals have been charged with serious violent crimes, such as discharging a firearm or possession of a firearm or weapon. They often require a higher level of monitoring while in the community, and this is often accompanied by a GPS order for monitoring when released by the court. Discuss the computer line equipment change of $289,000 for this year. That was a result of Albany County receiving a Discovery Reform grant in expanding costs related to Discovery Reform. The grant is fully covered by New York State, and it's also reflected in the revenue line in the budget for 2023. It is support bail reform, probation pretrial services, including GPS and other hardware and software. This award is based on the number of persons that are arrested in Albany County. And I also had another indication, performance indicators. I prepared for that if you'd like, but I'm open for questions.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do I have any questions from the members? Mr. Bergdorf.
I'll try to ask them quickly, Bill. You talked a lot about staffing, and I'm gratified to hear, I counted 14 vacancies you had, including the supervisory vacancy. We know that Raise the Age had a massive impact on the whole criminal justice system, but I've always been amazed at how much was directed at probation. I see a 75% increase in your budget for GPS services. You know that there are more high-risk offenders. How are you able to keep up with those responsibilities, given the staff that you have? What's it done to your caseload?
So actually, I talked about the reverse in our numbers. So our probation super numbers have total cases that are sentenced to probation has decreased. And actually, those caseloads are more manageable than they were before. So an average caseload for a probation officer is 60 to 70. So the cases of pretrial bail reform are in a really different unit, and they're managed differently. They're given a different risk instrument, and depending on how they're released in what quarter and what conditions, many of those offenders may not need to report in person after the first time if they're considered low level. But obviously, the gun cases are higher level. The cases that need GPS monitoring, we put a lot of effort in, but we're able to do it by shifting resources within the department.
So lower general crime side, higher Raise the Age side.
Seeing higher, yeah.
But you've established an equilibrium to service both.
So I think everyone knows, overall in Albany County, arrests have decreased. 10 years ago, there were 8,000 people arrested in Albany County. In 2021, there were 4,500, I think. So arrests are significantly decreasing, which has an impact on the cases that we're receiving.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bergdorf. Are there any other questions from any other members? Right, I would just like to ask this. Since marijuana has been more or less legalized, and also there has been a concerted effort even prior to that to stop arresting people for, those types of what would be considered a, low crime. So do you think that impacted also the number of arrests? And you just gave some numbers.
So many marijuana crimes were considered violations, and they were not arrested or fingerprinted.
Okay.
I think when the law changed, we might have had very few people actually on probation for marijuana, where their conviction was then reversed, and we had to seal the file. So it really wasn't an impact on us, I don't think. But we do have a lot of people on probation that do use marijuana, and it is impactful on their life in certain regards, depending on if it's used in a manner where they then continue to commit crimes.
Okay. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you so much for your presentation this evening. It's been very informative.
This is Lori Laynard. I neglected to, Lori Haggerty, I'm so sorry. This is, Lori Laynard was an old director, and I say that name often. Lori Haggerty, Deputy Director. Have a nice evening, everyone.
Thanks so much. Public Defender and Judge Merritt, you ready for your presentation? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Great to be back dealing with the legislature in person. The Albany County Public Defender's Office 2023 budget is actually in two parts. This majority of our funding comes from New York State. About 32% of our overall budget is county funds. This year, as last, our budget presents a reduction in cost to the county. When we filed our proposal, our initial proposal, it appeared that there would be approximately $40,000 that we were requesting, $40,000 less requested this year than last, as a result of a major victory of a grant from ILS that was a group proposal by the Public Defender, Conflict Defender, and the Assigned Counsel Plan, and with the county executive's assistance, Aaliyah McFarlane wrote a proposal that was a winner, $750,000 to Albany County, $250,000 a year. And if the legislature approves receipt of that money, the first $250,000 will be available to offset county funding to our family court program, beginning in, we will be able to bill for refund starting in 2023. So there is about $160,000 that we are requesting less than last year. We have just provided late last week, to the state, our request for funding for year 5 of statewide implementation of the Burrell Herring settlement. And we are still actually negotiating and fine-tuning that. When that is determined by New York State, we're already in the 5th year of the 5-year contract, but we're negotiating, they're lagging a year in terms of making the funding available. As soon as that request is finalized, and we're very close to finalizing it, then I will be back in front of this legislature, this committee, with a request for legislative action to approve receipt of basically 63% of our funding for 2023. So what I bring you tonight is good news, and I'm very happy to do that. I think we have, with the assistance of the county executive's team, developed a very solid proposal for going forward to obtain from the state sufficient resources to make our planned growth in terms of services and staffing, and I'll come back to staffing in a minute because we have a number of vacancies, but to get in the best position for the next contract of state funding, which we believe will either be a 1-year extension or a 3-year new contract. We're not sure how that will be approached. But the state has indicated that whatever it is, the monies will be set aside as they were for statewide expansion at the beginning of the agreement. So I have received some questions from the majority council, and would you like me to respond to those first?
Yes, please.
No, I'm looking for my question. We do have 24 vacancies in our office at this time. Most of these are carryover, and they are mostly state-funded. They are vacant because the increase in cases, as Bill Connors just indicated, the new arrests, our caseload for 21 and 20 was reduced from what it was in 18 and 19 substantially. This year it is up substantially, and our number of open files on violent felonies has increased substantially. So we are working to reduce the number of vacancies as rapidly as possible, and we have recruitment strategies that have been in place, and we are expanding them and improving them as we go forward. We've worked with Albany County in terms of HR, civil service, the Albany County Bar Association, Albany Law School, the New York State Defenders Association, and New York State Chief Defenders Association, and through the Civil Service Office here in Albany, we have been advertising on LinkedIn and Indeed. We have a program in existence, and it's been in existence for several years, a legal intern program with Albany Law School that has been a funnel for employment for young attorneys. As they go through law school, they get credit at the law school. When they graduate from law school, if we have reached some agreement to try to keep them on and they're interested, then we would, they take the bar, and when they come back, they would become a paid intern at an hourly rate if they pass the bar. Then they're awaiting admission to the bar. If they pass the bar exam, they get, we try to get them on our contract in some position, and then when they pass the bar and they're admitted, then they would become an APD1 as a licensed attorney. This, in our budget proposal this year for the first time, we have asked for, through the state, some funding for a summer paid intern program, which would be very specific. These folks would be paid a stipend, and they would be, there's 10 of them, and they would work starting this summer, 2023, and we also through Albany Law School, and we believe that that will add to our source for entry-level attorneys. What we're really looking for are, I'm not having difficulty finding entry-level attorneys, but we are having difficulty finding and keeping attorneys with some experience so that we can put them in the more serious cases and trust them in a courtroom and trust them with our clients. And they're hard to find because of the competition that we are dealing with, both with New York State and the private sector. And now the city of Albany has just increased their salary schedules, and we have lost at least one person to the city of Albany. We cannot compete with the Attorney General's office. I'm losing attorneys to them, and they're getting offered substantial amounts more than we can pay. This is not just a local problem, it's not a statewide problem. It's a national problem of trying to get people to join public law programs, whether it be on the defense side or the prosecution side. People seem to be, especially in terms of being public defenders, when I was in law school 100 years ago, I wanted to be a public defender, and it may have had something to do with what was on television at the time, but I really wanted to be a public defender. And I don't see that from people except for the people that we have groomed through the law school out looking to come into public sector defense work. When we get people trained, and this is where we're losing people, they learn what they're doing, they like litigation, and then they are highly recruited by our competition. And here in Albany, that's very difficult. And again, this is not unique to Albany County. This is something that is being addressed by the state programs that I'm associated with, the Defenders Association, the New York State Bar Association, and the Chief Defenders Association. And we're trying to come up with ideas of how to address this. We also participate in job fairs. I have one tomorrow with the University of Buffalo Law School. I have a relationship with the Syracuse Law School, Office of Employment. Albany Law School has had a job fair. We do that. New York State Bar Association had a hiring program online a couple of weeks ago that really wasn't appropriate for public sector programs, but we did participate in that. And the way we're finding experienced attorneys is really coming, as it always has, and that's by word of mouth. The reputation of the Public Defender's Office in Albany County has improved greatly, and people who do have some experience are willing a lot of times to take a chance and come and work for Albany County. One of the draws to Albany County is its benefit package. It is one of the best in the region. And so I strongly support keeping that strong and healthy, because it's a big draw when you're competing with counties that are offering $80,000 as a starting salary for somebody right out of law school. And that's, Saratoga County is one of them. They're very hard to compete with. The second question I had, are attorneys typically paid at their budgeted amount in your department? We have a 6-level salary schedule. Over 60% of my attorneys are not paid at the top of one of those sections. They're paid in increments as they go through a section. I would say most of the attorneys will spend maybe 2 years in each section. I'm trying to make our salary schedule into a career salary schedule to keep people. And we start at around just over $70,000, and our top salary is $104,000. And we work people through that based on years of experience, not just in Albany, but elsewhere when we try to attract them and we try to keep them. But again, we're losing people in the mid part of that salary schedule because of the draw of our competition. The third question, discuss impacts of bail reform, discovery requirements, and raise the age, and how the department has performed in the wake of those wonderful changes. They're long overdue changes. The bail reform, we have more clients who are out of custody. They're able to assist in their defense. It is extremely beneficial to them and to finding a just and fair result. It allows our growing and expanding ability to provide support services for our clients through the equivalent of social workers. We have case managers. We have a social services coordinator, and we have a peer advocate, and we're in the process of hiring a social worker or caseworker for family court. This is extremely important in keeping people out of trouble while they have charges pending, or while there's a petition against them in family court. If they have issues that they're dealing with, and most of them do, employment, health, addictions, gambling, whatever it happens to be, we now have ways to get them into programs and to help them stay stable in the programs, to present a better situation when we try to resolve a case finally. So it is to everyone's benefit, I feel, to have people out of custody, and the bail reform has done that. It gives our attorneys more time to spend with their clients and to work for better outcomes. It's a much fairer system toward real justice, and it's certainly more socially and racially just. The discovery reform, absolutely fair and right, and I say that very subjectively. My first trial, I got 2 pages of discovery handed to me halfway through jury selection. And now the people have a matter of days or weeks to provide big dumps of discovery. The problem that we have with the discovery reform is how to manage it. And this, again, is not a local problem. As Bill Connors indicated, everybody's got a body camera. Every store's got video. And all of this is being gathered. And it goes into a discovery package that is turned over to us. And we used to have a shared platform with the district attorney's office, and that as soon as discovery reform occurred, that was just blown away. So we have a whole new process, and somebody asked me to describe it. I would suggest that I provide that to you in writing, because it's about an additional 5 minutes that I would take tonight. So I will work with the county to get that to you by Tuesday's a big holiday, by Wednesday. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
And it's very detailed, but I will say that it's a growing problem. It is not going away. It's going to get bigger every year, and it needs to be dealt with on a statewide level, maybe through the DCJS or some other state agency, so that all the participants in the program would be able to have an ID, individualized ID, to have access to it. In the interim, how we're addressing this is through non-attorney staffing, and we've just started that. We have a brand new IT discovery tech who's wonderful, but she's just one. And most of the counties are hiring paralegals or some form of non-attorney staff to keep costs down, to review the discovery as it comes in, to get it into the right envelope. And I'm not a technical person. I thought I was talking about an envelope, but it's not. I mean, for a computer, and to make sure that it goes into a platform that we have. When we're finished with it for immediate purposes, it goes into a cloud that we're working with the Defenders Association to store, and it's expensive. So this is why we need to head toward a much larger view of this, and statewide is, I think, the way to go. Raise the age is, I believe, a very worthwhile concept, which in my opinion has been ineffectively and inadequately implemented statewide. My understanding was that when Raise the Age was passed, there was supposed to be about $800 million attached to it to develop and maintain programs of support for the adolescents who were released from custody. And my understanding is that about 250, at most, of that $800 million actually got distributed. And most of that went to where there were existing programs that were used and in place already in downstate. In Albany County, I believe that we got very little financial support. And as you heard from Bill, most of it is limited to ankle bracelets and monitoring and they, very little support in terms of, this is for people predisposition. Very little support to get them, get these adolescents the support that they need to not reoffend, to get where they should be, to get them training, to get them whatever help they need. It's just it's inadequate, if in existence at all. In addition, the number of people who get remanded in raise the age prosecutions, there are not enough beds in the youth facilities to house them. And so therefore, a lot of people are being released under supervision of probation who might otherwise had the court, in family court, it's a family court judge who's an acting county court judge. They have no other thing, nothing else they can do but to release them to a parent or guardian and put them under supervision of probation with an ankle bracelet. And where there might have been a basis to remand and put them at the youth detention facility, which is owned, as you know, by 4 counties and managed by Berkshire Farm. So those are the reasons that I feel that there are issues with raise the age, but the concept is, I think, a very valid one. Now, how have we performed regarding these changes? Well, this has been, incredible for our office. The only negative, I would say, out of the 3 is the discovery. The attorneys are having to review volumes and volumes of discovery. So instead of tonight either watching the NFL game or the World Series, they're watching body camera, they're supposed to be, watching body camera footage of discovery that's been provided in order to get their caseload ready for the next court appearance. It's amazing how much time is spent doing this. That's the only downside that I can tell you about that's affecting our office. We have responded to these reforms eagerly and aggressively in reference to bail reform. As you know, we have counsel at first appearance. Tina Sodi is the administrator of that program. It's an annual grant, or it's a 3-year grant, and it's about to be back in front of the legislature for review and approval of the next stage of that. But that means anybody who is arrested and goes before a judge is entitled to be represented by counsel during off-hour arraignments. And in terms of bail reform, if someone is held in custody and it's our client, and usually they're appointed by the arraigning judge to be our client until there's been an application, we would then get that information, see that it's appropriate to go for a release application in front of a county judge, and we try to do that the next business day. If the county judge does not act, in our view, appropriately, then we are seeking, in certain cases, writs of habeas corpus to try to get people released. And we're very active in trying to get people out of custody while charges are pending. Discovery, I just told you about the problems that we are having with that, are the volume of discovery. We are now, because of the discovery reform, able to challenge prosecution where they're not turning over information that the prosecution is supposed to. We're filing challenges to certificates of compliance and making motions for speedy trial dismissal. We're very active in terms of litigating the prosecution's compliance with discovery reform. We are actively litigating and mitigating the cases that we are receiving to obtain the best possible result on behalf of our clients. and we're doing, I would say, very well at that. In Raise the Age, I would say we are doing incredibly well. I have assigned a felony defense attorney to handle the Raise the Age cases in family court, in the adolescent part, the youth court. She knows what she's doing, and she's excellent at it, and she cares, and she has mitigation support, and we're getting people out of custody where it's a case-by-case call by Judge Brooks Morton as to how she wants to handle it. I'm sorry.
So, what I can say is this. You have given a very enlightening presentation.
I'm not done.
But what I would like for you to do is, I know that there's a question 5. I'm going to ask you to put some of this in writing in a report, because what you have stated is going to help us further as we begin to assess all of the agencies and what they have come before us with. So at this point, I would just ask that you give us a report on what you have stated, and it would be great if it was a written report, because I don't think we can retain everything that we heard tonight, especially since it's opposite of the opposite side of what we've been listening to. Okay, and so if there are no questions, we're going to move on to. Thank you.
I just have one
That-
question to add to the information which the judge will send back to you.
Okay, very good.
You've talked about how successful your defenders have been with Raise the Age and bail reform. I'd like to know what percentage in Albany County of our folks who are represented by a public defender do not come back to court when they're supposed to.
At what point in time? During the shutdown in COVID, nobody was going back to court.
Well, no, obviously.
No, I don't mean
No,
where the
I
courts were
appreciate that.
closed. People just didn't go to court.
Well,
And
same
it
thing.
wasn't limited to indigent people.
What about 2022?
I'll get you relevant information.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent question. Excellent response.
No.
Okay, thank
I just packed.
you. All right, then we want to thank.
I'm getting quicker.
Yeah,
Virtual pack.
that was very good. So we want to thank you right now, Judge, for your presentation.
Thanks, Judge.
And we probably could have listened a little longer, but we got 4 people after that. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know.
As you know, we're making the conflict with each other. Catch us breath down.
I'd like to know what a writ of habeas corpus
Okay, we
is.
have.
Show us the body.
We have an alternate public defender,
Okay, but the writ part.
Ms.
So
Sodi.
yes.
And we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Madam Chair, the joys of going after Judge Herrick, he covers everything, so it makes my life easier. So I'll move this along quick since there's other people after me. As you can see in my budget, the only thing that has changed with respect to the county share is roughly the 2% COLA for the personnel services, and everything else is covered by the state. For next year, I did add one additional attorney line. As many of you are aware, as a conflict defender, and as Judge Herrick had mentioned, the increase in the caseload, especially in the violent felony caseload, has been significant for my office this year. Just to give you a rough idea, which is the shocking number, this year alone, until now, we have 9 homicides that have been assigned to my office, which has been unheard of in comparison to previously, in the previous years of me taking over the office. And we also have about 5 or 6 attempted homicides, which take up just about the same amount of time. And so as a result of that, and as a discovery reform, one of the questions that was posed, similar to Judge Herrick's question, was how has bail reform and discovery reform impacted our offices and the issues? I won't repeat what Judge Herrick has said, but one of the things that I constantly said when bail reform happened was that everyone hears the complaints you hear from the district attorney's office, how their attorneys are working so hard, they have to go through all this discovery with the 10 investigators that they have that sort out their stuff for them, along with every law enforcement agency that I see as an agent of the district attorney's office that provides them that information. Whereas what people have missed in this reform was that the defense bar is the recipient of that information. We, as the defense attorneys, are the ones that are getting abundant amount of information, and as helpful as that is for our clients, it is a lot of information to go through. When the first time I asked the purchasing department that I needed a 5 terabyte hard drive, the response I got from them was, how big is that? And what is that? We've never heard of a terabyte hard drive. Due to the fact that each homicide cases has at least 5 terabytes of discovery. So you can do the math and think of the amount of videos that are on there and the amount of information that is on that hard drive to review. And that has to be reviewed. Every minute of that video has to be watched, because if we do not watch it as attorneys, we are ineffective assistance of counsel, and that is going to come up on appeal. So that's something that I feel that everyone overlooked and just didn't acknowledge, because as always, we're defense attorneys and we are defending people committing crimes, so nobody wants to acknowledge that part. We hear just the prosecution side of it. And that being said, this is the reason for adding another felony attorney, so that my attorneys are not running in 10 different directions, covering 15 local courts and covering all these violent felony cases, and actually will get more assistance. So that's, however, good news of that part is it's not at any cost to the county. It's covered by the state. The state is paying for that attorney for next year. The other question that I was asked was whether I pay my attorneys the amount in the budget. I do. Unlike the public defender's office, as you are aware, my office is significantly smaller. I have some of the best attorneys in the Capital District. If you know them, you would know that I have some of the best criminal defense attorneys in my office. They're definitely not getting paid their worth, as we all know. They're worth a lot more than what I'm paying them. So I don't see it just that I am going to pay them a lower salary than what the allocated amount is in the budget. And especially since half of my budget is covered by the state and the state's paying for that amount and I'm getting reimbursed, it only makes sense to pay them what's there. And I believe that was, and the other question was in regards to the cloud storage discovery system. The public defender's office has moved to the cloud storage discovery system. My office has yet to go. I reached out to NYSDA and they're not gonna start my process until next month. So they slowly went through office by office. I'm the next in line, and I'm very excited about that because, unlike Judge Herrick, I actually like technology, and I'm excited about the fact that we would have our files at our fingertips, and I can look up a case from my phone. My attorneys can look up the status. They can take pictures of a crime scene and upload it to our case file immediately from their phone or any electronic gadget, so that is very exciting for me. And that is pretty much it, and the rest I would leave it up for any questions.
Thank you so much.
And sorry for going so fast, just trying to get it done.
One thing I would like for you to do, you just spoke about a savings to the county.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have that in the report?
I believe I had provided, with respect to the memo that I had sent over, indicated as to each line and how much % of that is covered by the county. And as you can see, the final number for my revenue for next year is 1.1 million roughly, and the county's share is 852,000, which is an increase of about roughly down 28,000. And that's only due to the 2% COLA. And so the new attorney line that's added, that is entirely covered by the state.
Mm-hmm. What I was also referring to was also your explanation of the savings, but how it affects, the people that, you serve, as far as your clients.
With respect to the savings as to the budget, or with respect to hiring more attorneys to decrease the caseloads to assist our clients and provide them better representation.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Just a quick thing, you raised an interesting point just from what we heard, but it sounds that with Discovery and the bail reform things, that your office actually has less support to accomplish sort of the same requirements, so to speak, in a way, than, let's say, the DA's office, who gets assistance from investigators, local PD, and things like that. Is that accurate to assessment of sort of what you were getting at?
Yes, it is, and merely because, as I mentioned, the defense bar was not considered during Discovery reform. It was more or less only considered in the sense of this is best practice, and obviously it most definitely is, because it does put us in a fair playing field. But financially, that was not something that was considered.
And just one quick follow-up, Chair. And so it seems that in meeting these expectations, you went for grants, you handled your vacancies, and you invested in technology, and you're still able to handle those reforms without a severe increase to the county?
Yes, and due to the fact it's entirely, I would say, mostly due to the fact that Indigent Legal Services from the state is understanding of this issue and is understanding that every county is encountering the same problems. So they're willing to put out grants, and they gave us more flexibility with respect to what we can do with the funds that was provided in the statewide funding that they provided. So thus is why I was able to add the Discovery storage and everything else in my budget to cover the expenses, so it did not fall to the county.
Well, thank you for structuring and restructuring properly to what I know is a challenging situation. Madam Chairman, all set.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bergdorf.
Two quick questions. I think they're quick. You talk about instituting a new case management system, IT, to handle your Discovery needs. Has anybody talked with the other agencies in the county that are facing the same problems, whether they be probation or the DA or the public defender? Are these systems compatible? Can they talk to each other? Can the county department of IT, everybody's shaking their head no. Can the county IT department help you? Because, cybersecurity is a foremost problem. The county's going to be undertaking some dramatic measures. And it just seems that there should be, at some high level, some data transparency, although I can see between opposing parties, there may have to be a Chinese wall.
What kind of?
So, if I could jump in.
Please.
To kind of give a more of an overview rather than just Tina's view of her specific office. This is obviously an issue that we've been tackling on multiple fronts. We've been dealing with it in management and budget. We've had people in meetings from all sides, the prosecution side, the defense side, the IT, all of them. As of this point, there are no inter-compatible systems set up to kind of house these files. This is actually probably the number one priority we have in our state lobbying agenda for this year's cycle. To try to convince the state that whether it's through DCJS, whether it's through state ITS, there's a need here to develop one common system like you're talking about and house it with permissions. So prosecutor in Albany County gets assigned to a case, they have access to put it in, they see what the police have put in. So, Tina comes in because she has a second defender on the case. She gets a login to do what she can, necessarily do. The biggest issue is because you're gonna go from housing 5, 6, 7 different versions of this data down to one version. Potentially 2 with a large cloud storage solution. They handle the backup. It's not, at that point, the DA is housing, one set of data. The public defender may have a set of the data. The alternate public defender may have a set of data. Now, our IT department says, well, I need to mirror everything on our system, so now we have 6 copies of that data. We're talking terabytes per case. It's an economy of scale that ramps up very quickly.
Well, not only that, every system has to have a backup system. So
So, yeah, so rather than having six
Exponentially
cases, or, up to six, versions of this data, yes, that is the most logical solution. Problem is, no one's kind of put that on the table yet.
I would address, the reason it probably isn't put on the table is we also have very stringent confidentiality rules in regards to our clients. So it would obviously not make sense for anybody to have access to that information apart from us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the security concerns
Yes.
are immeasurable.
And with respect to going into clouds and whatnot, the security concerns are definitely addressed with all of that. New York State Defenders Association is the one that's managing that, and they have gone through a lot of trials in order to get it right, and thus is the reason that my office is still put on hold until next month, because they're still working out some kinks, and I'd rather it be worked out before I'm up and running.
Of course.
Second question was, you zeroed out your investigator this year. What would be the,
Oh, no, the investigator is not zeroed out, sir. It's the supervising administrator, which was a line that was converted into.
oh, I'm sorry, I went across.
Confidential
across the
secretary
line.
last year.
Wrong. I withdraw the question.
Thank you.
Island error.
You got a question?
No.
Very good. All right, I want to thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Again, it was very enlightening too. And so we thank you for all the hard work that you all are doing, because we do know that this is something that really impacts Albany County and our communities. Thank you so much.
Everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Mr. DeVos, assigned counsel.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of the legislature. First of all, can everybody hear me?
Now, yes, very good.
Excellent. Hi, I'm the little brother of the Indigent Defense Departments. My big siblings were up first. After Judge Herrick's cases, once he represents a client, his office is conflicted out. That's why Tina's office, the conflict defender, takes the next individual in the line. The third line of defense is a group of usually small firms, most of them solo practitioners, who work under a county law called 18B. They have a state rate in which they work. It's currently $75 an hour for a felony. After the huge Hurl Herring settlement that, quite frankly, changed the way indigent defense works, the deal was essentially this. The state produces money, and in return, they're expecting all of that resources to go to every level of the indigent defense process. The public defender and the conflict defender have traditionally been where most of the resources are because, again, these individuals are private contractors. They're kind of out on their own. It's my mission with the rest of the team and the help of the county executive and all of the parties involved to bring that organization into a post-Hurl Herring world. So far, we have been creating resource programs, creating mentoring programs, training programs to get this group of private attorneys to start taking advantage of their experiences, the things that they've gone through in order to improve the quality of indigent defense. My department is 100% a creature of the Hurl Herring settlement. The program does not cost the county a penny. We've had a couple of good years this year. We've managed to finally get an HQ together. We're bringing the attorneys together. We are about to launch a resource attorney program, which will be essentially a helpline for the panel attorneys so that if they need help, there are experienced attorneys available and willing to work with them through their caseload, give them advice, help them be prepared for the rigors of criminal defense, especially with all of the changes that have happened in the past couple of years.
Very good. Wow, that was interesting. We've really been taken to school tonight in regards to how our legal system is actually working on this side. And so I appreciate that. Do I have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Legal fees language.
Yes.
$1,120,000. What, could you explain what that is?
Sure, that line has traditionally been what 18B has been paid out of. So since way back in the day when indigent defense was created, that line is what that $75 an hour pays for out of the attorneys.
Okay, so the name is a misnomer, legal fees language.
Very, very much so.
Okay.
It's not even language, it's long wash.
Yeah, it's a long wash. Investigator services, $150,000. Do you reimburse the firms for investigative services, or do you actually have them hire investigators and voucher you? How does that work?
Okay, well, traditionally, sir, what would happen if I were an ATB is I would go to a judge and say, hey, I need an investigator in order to properly evaluate this case. The judge would make an evaluation as to whether or not I get one, would sign an order saying, okay, you have $2,000, go find an investigator to investigate your case. This process has been traditionally hit or miss. Sometimes your judge doesn't agree that you need an investigator. And this has, of course, created a tremendous burden for the ATB process. So what I have done with the rest of my staff is we've created a program that says, rather than go to the court and ask the court to provide you with that resource, come to us. We've talked to some investigators around the county who are willing to take this kind of work. The state is willing to reimburse for it. So instead of going to the courts and asking for that and dealing with that delay, come to us. You fill out a form, you send it to us, we look at it, and we'll grant you, at the moment it's $1,200, and say up to $1,200 you can get to us. If you need more, come back and we evaluate that from there. The program and the panel attorneys are really liking it. We're seeing investigators be used at a rate in 18B that, quite frankly, we wouldn't have seen 5 years ago at combined.
Thank you, great answer, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Chairman?
Right.
What?
Thomas, could you explain a bit more about your 18B program? They're almost like independent contractors, it seems, and how are these individuals paid and how long does it take them to get paid?
So, if there are 3 people that are charged with the crime, Chairman, the public defender gets the first one. Conflict defender gets the second one. The third one is a private attorney. That private attorney, a judge comes and says, congratulations, this is your client, you represent them. At the end of their representation, they fill out a timesheet like they would in any other private case. They will get an order from the judge who reviews the timesheet and says, okay, I've reviewed it, the fees are fair and reasonable. They then send it to the county, and they've been sending it to the county for 60 years. When that happens, if I have to have a certain amount of information because the state is very data-driven, they want to know what's happening in the cases. If a panel attorney gets me that packet and it has everything that I need in order to report it, I try to process it inside of 10 business days. We're doing about 6 these days for the criminal cases. The family court cases take a little bit longer. Then it gets up to the comptroller's office, and I believe their payment policy is about 4 to 6 weeks.
If the grand total from submission of a complete time packet to getting a paycheck is how long?
I think the average would run about 6 weeks, sir. I think the average would run about 6 weeks. One through us and then through the comptroller. But it could be as high as 8.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go to Ray and then Mr. Mayo.
Well, I just had that question too on the time frame on the 18Bs, but I also noticed I've never seen a fees for service lines zeroed out. Has that been moved to specialized services for 2023?
Precisely, sir.
Okay.
Basically, what we're trying to do is I'm trying to distinguish between the investigative services that we're utilizing and what are called expert services, which the state is also asking for. So blood experts, psychologists, etc. And so when we did that, in order to make this fit more in line with the county budget and how the other lines are used, we adjusted it accordingly.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayo?
Is your assigned council administrator an attorney?
Yes, he's me.
Okay, and then you have a supervising attorney who is not you?
The supervising attorney is not me, that's Judge Carter.
Okay, all right, and just one other quick question. Why can't funding be used from the Hurl Herring in family court? Do you know what the rationale is for that?
Yes, unfortunately. Hurl Herring is a criminal, Hurl Herring, as the state tells us endlessly, is a criminal law settlement specifically directed to deal with criminal law. And so the state contract that enforces it has very strict rules about how the money is spent. And if we spend it in a way that they don't like, they simply don't reimburse us.
But even if it's a criminal matter in family court?
Well, a criminal matter in family court in this context isn't a family court matter, it's a criminal matter. So, for example, if a juvenile were to be charged with a crime under, say, raise the age, that the state treats as a criminal matter. So, if you needed an expert or you needed an investigator in that matter, I could absolutely fund that. But an exclusively like custody issue or an exclusive neglect issue in family court, I cannot, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Again, excellent presentation. Again, we have really been enlightened. And I know I've used that 3 times now, but that is indeed the case. Indeed the case. Thank you for the work that you do. I also thank you for the innovative ways in which you have learned how to defend the people who, you know, are under your counsel. And so I'm happy to meet you. And I was going to say I hope that we see you again. I don't know.
I'm at your disposal, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to move on now to County Attorney. How are you doing this evening, Ms. Condon?
Thank you very well, Madam Chair. How are you?
Good, very good.
Thank you for the opportunity to present our budget to the legislature. Like everyone else, I assume you all know Mr. Lagori, and this is Jordan Kuban, our first Assistant County Attorney. Like everyone else, I can tell you the law department is incredibly busy in 2022. While we never stopped working during COVID, business is booming for the law department. Our numbers are up as far as our filings, our court appearances, our raise the age. Everyone's talking about raise the age tonight. Our raise the age numbers have right now have exceeded last year's numbers. For what our filings were, our litigation numbers are due to exceed last year's filings by the end of the year. Our filings in family court for our children, youth, and families, our petitions for abuse and neglect petitions are due to exceed filings for what we filed last year. Our Article 81s are due to exceed, or have exceeded so far what we filed last year. We are incredibly busy. As a result, we do have a few requested changes in our budget. We are requesting initially 2 new positions. One is a litigation unit supervisor, we are calling it. Our litigation unit, as I indicated, is incredibly busy. We have 3 people that are dedicated to the litigation unit. One is the deputy county attorney who oversees the litigation unit along with his deputy county attorney functions. We have 2 full-time assistant county attorneys who are dedicated to the litigation unit. The litigation unit has become incredibly busy along with complex issues that we are dealing with, complex discovery issues that take an incredible amount of time for our staff. We are having trials scheduled, we have depositions scheduled, we're incredibly busy. We have a part-time family court attorney who works in our department who is actually a seasoned litigator, who has desired to come on staff full-time. We are proposing, we would like for her to become our litigation supervisor and work directly under John and work with the litigation staff and oversee our litigation work and oversee the flow of the litigation. She would work part-time in the litigation unit and work part-time in our family court unit. Her work in the family court unit would continue to be reimbursed as our legal service charges. In order to fund her position, we are recommending to eliminate a vacancy that we have. We have a clerk vacancy part-time that has been vacant since July. We are recommending that we eliminate that vacancy. She would absorb her current position, and we have money in a line, a full-time investigator line that is actually occupied by a part-time investigator. So we would reduce that line in order to fund the position. We are also recommending and requesting a human services unit supervisor. This would be a person who would oversee our family court unit as well as what we call our human services unit, which is essentially our court units. It is our family court units, our children, youth, and families unit, our juvenile delinquency unit, and our mental health and DSS unit. So DSS unit encompasses our Article 81s that we file in the Supreme Court, our collection and support units in family court, as well as our mental health proceedings that we file in the Supreme Court. During the course of this year, an employee from the district attorney's office transitioned from our office due to a confidential personnel matter. This employee has assumed the role this year of the supervisor and has done extremely well in our department. She has brought us the wealth of her knowledge from the district attorney's office. Unlike the other departments that have appeared before you that work with Raise the Age, the law department has no funding for Raise the Age. We requested it when the funding was coming down for Raise the Age, and we received no funding. We prosecute 250 juvenile delinquent petitions per year. We have one prosecutor who does that, of which 58 Raise the Age petitions have been done so far this year. This Raise the Age is a unique, these felony cases are unique for our office. They were a new area of law that our juvenile delinquency attorneys have really no expertise in doing and had to learn to do. Having no funding, no training, very little training, no staff to assist has been a difficult pursuit for us. We have a prosecutor who has assumed this role, but having a supervisor with experience from the district attorney's office has proved vital. She's able to provide training to our staff in areas of trial techniques, advocacy, who to contact in police departments, issues that we're just not familiar with. She provides us information as to software that we don't even know exists because we just don't have that knowledge, not having received any information or funding for Raise the Age. So it's the recommendation of the Department of Human Resources that we continue to keep this person, and we need to provide going forward funding for the position. It has worked out very well for us, and I would request that we move forward with it because the position supervises family court, or DCYF and DSS. 2/3 of the position is included in our legal services charges. I did have several questions. Do you want me to address the questions that were asked?
Sorry, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
The first is regarding Project Growth. So Project Growth is a collaborative effort that is funded by the law department. We initiated it originally several years ago. Probation selects the students and has developed much of the career curriculum that they do their education so that they get their degree. And we work with the Sheriff's Department and the Recreation Department to provide the programs for them. We fund it, the funding is set in our department, and we help to assist with the budget, determine if there's sufficient funding for the programs. We do not determine the programs themselves. That's worked out by the Recreation Department. I did consult with them because you were asking what was being done next year. They're still formulating what they want to do for next year, but they just completed a very successful culinary program. So they're considering doing a culinary program again next year and possibly bringing some of them on as interns to do some of the programs. So when they have the camps, to have them cook on site if possible, and possibly hire them as interns. They also had a successful garden program last year where they planted a garden at the lake. And so they want to work on fostering that. Cornell Cooperative came in and assisted them with planting a garden. And so they want to have the work on that and possibly have a vegetable garden and work on that with the youth. They're also looking at building lean-tos in the woods so that these are shelters. So if hikers get lost, they have a shelter until someone can find them so that they're not in the woods, in the trails, out at the lake. And then the last thing they're looking at is the cabins out at the lake need to be rehabbed. And so possibly getting assistance with getting them training so that they can rehab the lake. They did work on Waldman Lodge, I think last year. They redid the lodge. They've done quite a bit out there. They've done the ramp. They've done every year there's a different project that they do out there. It's been quite a successful program. The vacancies in the department. So as I indicated, we have a part-time clerk vacancy, which became vacant when our part-time clerk, she passed the exam and we transitioned her to full-time position. It's been vacant, so we're proposing to eliminate it. We, like the public defender, have vacancies. We have one full-time attorney vacancy, confidential secretary vacancy, which we are recruiting for. We have a part-time attorney vacancy, and we will very shortly, right before Thanksgiving, have another attorney vacancy. The attorney vacancies are all in our DCYF unit in family court. Unlike the public defender, my vacancies stem from my newly hired attorneys, and they have all gone to the state. These are attorneys who have been admitted 2 years or less. They are being hired as senior attorneys, making $20,000 more, and they're being hired to either work remotely, they're being hired as hearing examiners. I can't compete with this. These are attorneys who are just, they're prosecutors in family court, and I cannot compete with this. They're coming, I can't even offer them any salary that would compete with them. And so the state is taking all of my employees. We lost two attorneys this year. Same thing. Every vacancy we've had. We are working very closely with affirmative action. That's the first line I go to. But affirmative action is continuously recruiting attorneys. So every time Mr. Cantor gets a resume, he sends it to us. He goes to the law school. He goes to the Bar Association. He does everything that we do. He's continuously recruiting. So whenever we go and to get payroll authorization to fill our position, we don't have to wait. We just can immediately try to fill it. We are working with civil service and human resources. We've posted it on Indeed. I have gone through my advertising budget paying to post to get resumes. We are going to the law school. He's going to the law school. He's gotten their resume book. They're to see what positions there are that we can interview. He is going to the law school and going to the career fairs. We do hire interns, and we have successfully hired interns through the intern program, just like Judge Herrick does, the DA does the same thing, and we've recruited them and we've hired them. We've also done that with interns in our other positions, clerk positions, support staff positions, and it's been successful. We actually have an intern through the legislative program who is going to transition to a full-time position with us next year when a retiree leaves. It's been very successful. We strongly advocate hiring interns if we can get them. But it is the same problem, and I'm at a loss, frankly. Other than that, I think, the other question, like Judge Herrick, most of my attorneys are at line. Newly hired attorneys are not, unless they have been admitted for a period of time. Most of my newly hired attorneys have either just been admitted or are awaiting admission, so they are not at line. We move them up successively each year in salary. We have grades 1 through 5 in our attorney lines, and the attorneys are categorized when they're filled in a line according to their years of experience, not only with the county, but date of admission and their experience doing our type of work. If they're newly in the office and newly doing work, we don't necessarily put them at the high line, we will move them up. Attorneys do appreciate, they feel that getting a raise, and they appreciate moving up. Frankly, they like getting their 2%, but they also enjoy getting a raise, so sometimes it works out, but most of our attorneys are at line.
Okay, thank you. Now, are there any other questions?
Quick.
Mr. Berger?
What I'd like to focus on is how do you go a little deeper into how you handle raise the age prosecutions in family court. Are you subject to the same discovery requirements?
No.
So family court is much more informal, and so you're not covered by the same strictures as prosecutorial work. Are prosecutions of juveniles always handled by a county attorney's office?
In Albany County, they are. We are the presentment agency.
Are there other counties that have divisions of the DA's office or other supervisory entities do that?
In New York City, it's the law department, the New York City Law Department that handles them. But by county law, the presentment agency does it, unless there's a local, I don't know unless there's a local law.
Okay, so it's generally...
It's always been the county attorney.
Okay, so this is not unique that your people are now facing...
No, we've always done JD.
No, but I mean, prosecution,
No.
you were talking about having a prosecutor in there to teach your people trial work and trial techniques and more of a prosecutorial bent. Okay,
It was, so in family court, when it's a JD, it's not a defendant, it's a respondent.
Okay.
And we are the presentment agency, and the standard is different. It is, there's a best interest of the respondent coupled with best interest of the community, which is different than what it is when you have, the DA, when you're in a criminal court. But the raise the age cases, you're dealing with more violent crimes. So these are crimes that we are not, and we don't generally deal with, because before raise the age, when those violent crimes went up to county court.
Yeah,
We
I
didn't
get
deal
it. So
with
it's a brave new world for you.
It is a brand new world.
What struck me in your comments, I don't remember, I think it was in the prose that we have in our iPads, you talked about how you went to the state to look for some grant money for Raise the Age.
So that was part of the
And they
whole-
turned you down.
That was part of the Raise the Age package, and Bill Connors actually handled the grant application for all of the agencies. He did that for us. Yes, we put together, and Dan Lynch was actually the county attorney at the time. That's how far back it goes, and he did it for our department. We requested investigators, support staff, and attorneys, and we didn't receive any.
So, I mean, do you, sounds like you have a higher caseload, a staff that maybe is learning as they go.
Yes.
And you said, somewhere in here, it said that, you know, you were doing well, giving the strictures that you were under.
We're trying, yes, we are, absolutely, and we have a very good prosecutor in place, but it always is of value to have someone who knows the ins and outs of things that we don't know. When Dan Lynch was county attorney, it was the first year of Raise the Age, and he was able to provide that mentoring to the prosecutors, but we haven't had that since that time.
Yeah, the words you used were effectively prevail on high-volume case calendar. Okay, so, but you're doing all right and you're holding your own.
We're attempting to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Mayor.
Is the county attorney's office for loan school or law school loan repayment, is it considered a public service? Public?
Yeah, oh, yes.
So did you ever go that route to the, like, Michigan or something, who
No, we just go to Albany Law to look for recruits.
yes.
Yeah, we just go to Albany Law School. We just, to get students, to get interns, we go to Albany Law School. If we get applications, we certainly, you know, anyone who applies, we interview, interns we interview, but civil service has been doing the recruiting for us.
Okay, I mean, do you think that would be helpful to reach out to?
I certainly will suggest it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Brief question, they can send it to also. In the project growth, you talked about 66 graduates, and 49 of them, you mentioned where they went, school or employment. Can you just let us know what happened to the other 17, or where they ended up?
I would have to ask
Yeah, you
Mr.
can-
Connors, I'm assuming.
You can send it to us, it's fine.
All right, thank you. Mr. Peter?
Just one, I guess, final question. So, you talked about in your presentation that, not all your attorneys are outlined, some of them are below. Do you know on average what the differential is? So what I mean by that is, you know, sometimes, you know, there's the step increase or you hire more senior attorneys, so it's above or below. But year over year, are we seeing that there's a large leftover amount, or what are we seeing?
No, so it's difficult to, it's generally in the assistant county attorney ones, and it's difficult to say right now because of the vacancies that I have. So last year, it would have been probably half. I had 3 entry levels who were in the $60,000 to $65,000 range, and last year the salary was 77, and I had one who was at that line, 77. So now I will have 2 that are vacant, and I will have one who's at 70 and one who's at 65.
Yeah, Mr. Riley, if you could, maybe, can you give us, like, over the last 3 years, sort of what the average over-under was on for that?
Put that together for you.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you so very much. And I want to thank all of you for coming in this evening. I want to thank you for your patience, and I want to thank you for the presentation that you gave, which we as members, many times, we get to hear most of what you're talking about in the budget hearings, and that's what they are for. So I thank you for your thoroughness, and if there's any questions, we will be back to you with it. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
Immigration assistance, Evelyn Kenna? Good evening, Ms. Kenna.
Good evening, everyone.
And your voice,
Can you hear me okay?
your voice is very soft. I don't want you to have to repeat yourself.
I'll try to speak up.
Please
Is
do.
that better?
Thank you, yes.
Madam Chair and members of the legislature, I am the director of the Office of Immigration Assistance. Thank you for this opportunity to be here this evening. My office is charged with ensuring that attorneys who are assigned to represent a non-citizen client in a criminal court proceeding will have access to the training, legal advice, and support in compliance with the requirements established in the Supreme Court case Padilla v. Kentucky. We also provide legal support and assistance to assigned counsel representing a non-citizen parent or other adult in family court proceedings who require competent advice on immigration issues that may impact them as well. When we assist those attorneys, they in turn are able to guide their non-citizen clients to make informed decisions regarding any adverse immigration consequences that may arise in their criminal court case or family court case. This office covers a geographical region designated as Region 3, which includes 14 counties in New York State. Those counties are Albany, Clinton, Essex, Franklin, Fulton, Hamilton, Montgomery, Rensselaer, St. Lawrence, Saratoga, Schenectady, Warren, and Washington. We also provide continued legal education trainings about the intersection of immigration law, criminal law, and family law to those attorneys, as well as to judges and other immigration providers. We also assist non-citizens in Albany County with other immigration issues that they may need help with. To do so, we work very closely within a referral network system with other immigration partners to make sure that the individual seeking immigration assistance is being referred to the right agency that provides the service that they're looking for. Regarding the department's budget, there are 4 full-time positions. All positions in the budget are currently funded through grant monies from New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services. We are fully funded 100% through ILS. We're currently at the end of a 3-year contract for the work that we do. The contract period is from January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2022. In the last few days, I received word from ILS that they will be extending our contract for an additional year. And so we're currently awaiting the paperwork to formalize the extension of the contract. And we will be fully funded as well. So we do plan on submitting a proposal whenever a request for proposal comes out for the regular 3-year contract that we've successfully competed for and received 2 times. And so for the budget period that's under consideration, we will be under the extension, 1-year extension. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so very much. Ms.
Well, okay, I'll do a question. I'll do a question.
You're okay.
You're okay. It's all right.
You could submit them early, too.
No. Well, I'm sorry. I'm still doing my homework at 4 o'clock, so. Given the influx of immigration in New York State, how do you find that hitting and creating a draw upon the counties in which you serve and the types of information requests that you're getting?
Yeah, we do work within a network of immigration providers that are local. We all have our strengths, and so we work together to provide the services that are needed in the community. We don't provide any direct representation because our funding is 100% through ILS, and so that's why a partnership is essential to be able to provide assistance to non-citizens located in the county.
I guess my question was, are your providers seeing a major influx of clients as a result of the influx of immigrants into the United States?
Yeah, there's an ebb and flow, so it just depends on the time and who's here or what's driving the traffic to the county.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation this evening, and just keep up the good work that you are doing. And good evening to you. Ladies.
Save the best for last.
The best for last.
We won't be offended if you don't have any questions.
All right.
We're bringing forth before you today the budget for the Albany County Board of Elections. Our budget has not increased on too many fronts. It's pretty steady budget along the way, but we do have a couple of items in our office equipment line. We are looking for money to buy Konica Minolta new printers to print ballots. The printers that we currently are using are getting old and have to be serviced all the time. We put in $200,000 for the purchase of this printer and for the maintenance on it, and that will save the county millions of dollars over the next couple of years, so that we don't have to outsource the printing of ballots. And we also have some money in our election equipment line that we're requesting, which we will subsidize with grant money from the Technology Innovation and Resource Grant that we're going to use to buy more ballot-on-demand machines. And the only other line that we have an increase in is our election day staffing. We expect legislation to be passed to require counties to pay their inspectors a $300 rate per election, which we think is fair anyway, because the $250 we're paying them now for a 16-hour day, we're having difficulty finding quality inspectors, so we wanted to raise their salaries anyway. Questions?
Okay. Can I ask a question? Let's see here. Election day staffing up 200,000. Okay. Oh, all right. So now, did you answer that about? Okay. Very good. But this is what I want to know. Do you know how many people have voted?
15,875 up till today.
15,875.
So if you'd like some reference for 2019, total votes cast for early voting in the state was 256,000. That was the first year that we actually implemented early voting. 2020, it was 2.5 million, which, as you are aware, is a presidential election year. And 2021, which was an off-election cycle, was 411,172, and that's statewide. This is what's considered a midterm election, so the turnout is higher than other years, but lower than presidential election years. I get questioned all day long as to what it means, who's gonna win, where it's going, and my answer is I'm not a magic 8-ball. I can't see results that quickly, and I would love to say, each side will have their winners and everyone will be happy, but, unfortunately, that's just not the case. So one thing I would definitely like to add is that a major initiative that our department is focused on this year, which we've kind of been focusing on for a couple of years, working in conjunction with our IT department, is enhanced cybersecurity reforms, which is, as you are aware, is a major component of elections in this country. And we receive grants in order to do this. We've hired vendors who specialize in cybersecurity enhancement, and they are working with us to create special emergency plans in the event of some sort of hijack of our system. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Suffolk County actually had their entire county apparatus go down. And the IT staffer at the Board of Elections realized quickly what had occurred and pulled the plugs on their systems. So it did not affect their Board of Elections, but they are now essentially working without connectivity. So we want to avoid these sort of situations, even in the event of a national emergency or a local one. We are preparing special plans, working with Homeland Security and FBI, whereby we can address these situations on demand as needed. We are even creating off-site emergency systems where if something had occurred in our building, we can deploy to a different location and immediately establish an election upon notice. So those are some of the initiatives that we are focused on. In addition to that, as you're aware, we're slowly transitioning the county to, and we spoke about this last week at Audit and Finance, to a ballot-on-demand system, which is great because it reduces the need to print in-house ballots to some degree. So those are additional savings on printing. And also it increases accuracy of ballot styles. So, and it creates more efficiency too. So we are purchasing with the new grant that we are receiving, which is with the increase in that line, in our election equipment line, which is what you see, is reimbursable 100% by the state. And we're going to be using those funds to purchase new equipment to transition slowly to those systems.
Okay, so I guess what the machines themselves, the information that is in them, I'm trying to.
I know, it's been a long day.
Yeah. The information that is in the machines, every election night, people are waiting for the slip to roll out. Isn't it possible that instead of that slip rolling out like that, can it come directly to the Board of Elections?
No, and it's a great question. And the reason is because we're not allowed to have any connectivity at all on our, we're not allowed to have any connectivity, internet connection, on our voting machines itself. So there's two different infrastructures, right? There's ballot-on-demand systems, which is where the voter checks in, a ballot prints out, and the second component is the actual ballot scanner. So as you are aware, they're over a decade old. So we are seeking to replace these machines with newer, more enhanced systems. One issue that I will present to you, which will probably become subject to further debate by the county legislature and approving funding for us in the future, is that there's a new machine called the XL machine, which is the ES&S company, which is what we use for our voting apparatus and our equipment. We are not a Dominion County, we are an ES&S county. As you're aware, there are two vendors, primary vendors in New York State, which service all the counties. One is ES&S and one is Dominion. Dominion is the infamous company that is the subject of national debate and fodder for everyone, among other things. But we are not in Dominion County, we are actually in ES&S. So ES&S has a new piece of equipment called the XL, which was part of a lengthy debate in the state legislature this year. For those of you who follow that, there are some people who are huge proponents in it because it's far more efficient and it's far more effective in voters being able to see the actual ballot and what they're picking. However, it's not 100% a full-face ballot. So, which is a somewhat of a requirement under the Help America Vote Act, was the requirement to have a full-face ballot, which is a true accounting and measure of a person's vote, right? Because you take a pen, you fill it in, you mark it, and there's actual physical evidence of your vote. The XL does not do that. You mark your choice, sort of works like a ballot marking device. You mark your choice, and then it spits out a piece of paper with your choices, and that paper will be used to scan into a voting machine. So some people feel that there's some sort of deficiencies in the technology only because it's not a full-face ballot. So this is something that we will be bringing forth to you in the next year or two, and that will be subject of internal debate in moving forward for funding for these machines.
Okay, I got another
And
question.
even if we don't purchase those machines, we at least need to upgrade the machines that we have. I mean, there are newer versions of our current machine. If for whatever reason, the legislature or we decide not to go with the other machine, we will still need to replace the current machines that we have regardless.
Okay, then this shouldn't require a long answer, but I still want to know. For people who cannot read, or people who speak, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a language.
Spanish.
I'm talking about something like really strange. So how do they vote?
So the majority of the individuals who come in, we haven't really had situations, maybe one or two individuals who couldn't read or write or speak in English as well as they could. So they bring family members with them who assist them in making their choices and translate it for them. And as you're aware, under election law, assistance is allowed to a voter upon the consent of the voter.
However, I thought the machines were set up so people could actually hear what was in front of them.
The ballot marking device can assist a voter who, while not blind, can't read. That's if you know our machines, there's the side where you insert your ballot, and then the other side is called a ballot marking device. Any voter can use that. You don't have to be disabled or not be able to read. You yourself could go in and use it. And there are several things that a voter can use to use that machine, and one of them is headphones. So they could listen to the choices on the ballot to mark it.
All right, and so we're going to try to stick with that too, to allow people to do just that, so that their vote would still be private and they don't need assistance.
We would always have some kind of device to assist voters.
Right, we are required to under ADA guidelines, and we do get visited by a good government groups who are advocates for people with disabilities. We actually had them in inspecting our early voting sites just yesterday, and we work closely with them. When they find deficiencies, we work quickly to fix them.
So what's the last day of early voting?
Sunday.
Sunday.
November 6th.
November 6th.
We have one other item we want to add. We are asking for increase in salaries for the commissioners. We asked for a $10,000 increase. After reviewing the salaries of other commissioners in this county, we are the second lowest paid commissioners in this county. The average commissioner makes $118,000. We make $101,000. So we are asking for a $10,000 raise. If you want to give us more, we'd be happy to take it. And we are also asking for a raise for our laborers, because the title of laborer doesn't really cover their job description. They are more hands-on with some of the needs that we have with machines. They help out with training. In overloaded times, they can help enter registration forms. They're not just the title laborer. So we're asking for a $5,000 increase in their salaries as well.
And just to put some perspective on that, just to add some stats, the position itself is not, outside of cost of living increases, has not received a raise since I've been there, and I have been commissioner for 12 years. So this is actually the first time we are requesting a raise for the position in 12 years. And I just want to further expand that I have, and Kathy was there for a lot of it too, we have overseen major reforms, technological modernization of the Board of Elections, some that were mandated on us last minute by the state. We did not have the luxury of working from home during COVID. We had to make major implementations very quickly and changes to our operations. We have successfully done so without expanding our number of staff over the years. And so our staff, who I give a lot of credit to, have actually taken on disproportionate amount and increasing number of burdens, despite not getting similar raises that are proportionate to those increased in job duties. So, you know, we would appreciate any sort of increase, whatever that may be, and we are grateful for that.
All right. I just want to say thank you so very much. You all have been very patient and listened to every every presentation that was made this evening, but obviously we did save the best for last. So I'm going to close this night out because I'm fading away here.
All right, I'll let you go. Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
I didn't get that.